Okay, in this video, we will be walking through the steps on how to set up the Alacritty terminal with the friendly interactive shell, the fish shell, and nerd fonts. Okay, so we've seen this kind of splash screen wallpaper here. If you would like to follow along with the steps in this video, you can go to github.com, programming rainbow, and this project will be called terminal. The first thing that we're going to be doing is installing the Alacritty terminal. So the environment that I have been using for programming in is Xmonad, and the terminal that I've been using is Alacritty. So Alacritty is a terminal that is created in Rust. It is cross-platform and is quite fast. It's available in Linux, BSD, macOS, and Windows. And if you want to follow along with the programming videos, you can be running the same terminal if you like. So I'm going to be setting up Alacritty. On Archlinux, there is actually a page on Alacritty. There is also themes that you can use with Alacritty on the GitHub Alacritty page. There is Alacritty themes, and there are quite a few themes to choose from, so you can kind of see all the different color schemes. So we'll be setting this up, and I'm going to be using Cappuccino Mocha for the theme. And we will be using nerd fonts. So nerd fonts give you the ability to have kind of icons and whatnot in it. So if we look up here on the cheat sheet, if we wanted to look up like the Go language, we could just type in Go, and there we see the Go language gopher. Or if we typed in Archlinux, we see the Archlinux icon. And this actually works. If I just copy this and put it, well, I don't have nerd font installed just yet, so we'll check it out afterwards. So let's get started. So we'll just open up the normal terminal. So Alacritty is already is one of the packages that you can install. Install Alacritty right here on the Archlinux page. So we're just going to install that. I've already done an update, but you could first do the update, obviously. Pacman -s YYU. And I will also use we'll use the sudo paccache -rk0, and that will remove any of the packages, the downloaded packages from the cache folder. Okay, it looks like I have a couple here, just 5 megabytes worth. Okay, so that is done, and you'll see that it actually cleared up some disk space. So now let's just install the Alacritty package. So sudo pacman -s, and I'm going to put the needed. I know that it's not installed for me right now, but I've put this in the steps to follow just because if you already have it, it's not going to try to reinstall it on you. Okay, so it's quite small. Okay, so Alacritty is installed, but I actually want the themes with Alacritty too. So I'm going to go ahead and close these. So right here, this is on the official Alacritty GitHub page, and there's one called themes. And if you scroll down a bit, it actually says that you should make a folder. So this is the tilde /.conf config. This is your home folder config. And inside of that home config folder, there is an Alacritty folder. And this is where your file, your config file would be put inside of Alacritty, and it would be called alacritty.toml. But inside that, you can also have themes. So this is saying go ahead and make that. Okay, so if we just copy that, and it's -p switch on the make directory. I'm just going to paste that in. I've made that folder now, and then now I'm just going to git clone the themes directly into there. And this is going to be a bit funny because we are telling it to go into the themes folder, but it's going to be called themes. So what's going to happen is we're going to have a themes folder inside of a themes folder. But this is the way that they say to do it. It's their project, so I'm just going to follow that. So now it's cloning it in there. Like I said, this is going to end up being a themes inside of a themes folder, but again, this is how they officially recommend doing it, so I'm just going to follow that. So if we look inside this folder here, config Alacritty, we have a themes folder. If we look inside the themes, we have another themes folder. And inside of that themes folder is the actual theme, which is just fine. It's fine. No big deal. Okay, so the way that we actually implement this is we tell it to import the config and Alacritty themes, and then the name of the theme we want. It's a TOML file. Okay, so what's going to happen here is I already have a config file for Alacritty that is in here. So we can look at it. It's inside .config Alacritty, and then Alacritty TOML. And this is the file we're going to be using. So you see that first right away here, you see the import, and it's importing that Cappuccino Mocha theme. And there's a couple other settings. I'm not going to walk through everything, but this is just basically saying when you're using SSH, it might not understand SSH from Alacritty. So it says, hey, just say that you're Xterm. This is documented in the Archlinux for Alacritty. Oh, sorry. I may have closed it already, but it's documented there. Then we have the size of the font. I'm putting 18 on my terminal. It's quite big, but that's because I'm doing videos, so I want you to be able to read them. Normally, I'd probably use 14 on my screen size, but 18 just to make it bigger and readable. And down here we have the nerd fonts that we want to use. So this is JetBrains Mono Nerd font, and it's set up for bold, italic, and regular. It's the same over and over again. There's some other settings, some basic things about copying and pasting, just to make it act like a normal terminal. Nothing really special is going on here. Yeah. So you can walk through this. There's a page on all about this. See, in the Alacritty. I think I've closed Alacritty. But if you go to the Alacritty website, it actually has a page discussing each part of this, but there's nothing really special going on here. This is just telling it to act like a normal terminal, like Control-Shift-C would copy something, Control-Shift-Paste would paste it, just the way that a normal terminal would act. So the only thing we're really interested in is the font size and the font style. So we can't actually use this just yet because we need to install the nerd fonts. So we've already seen the nerd fonts. This basically adds icons to fonts so that part of the font glyphs are actually icons. And the specific one that I'm going to be using is the JetBrains Mono Nerd font. So this is the JetBrains Mono font for terminals, but with the nerd fonts added to it. And that's in Archlinux. Right here, there is TTF JetBrains Mono, and then there's TTF JetBrains Mono Nerd font. This is the one that has the nerd, we want the nerd font glyphs. That's the actual extra icons that I showed earlier. That I show for Go and for different things. Let's see, C++ maybe. Oops. Okay. Say CPP. Yeah, there we go. And there's just C as well. You know. This kind of nerd font gives us all these kind of things like this. So what we're looking for is this TTF JetBrains Mono Nerd font. That's the package. I'm just going to copy it here. Oh, sorry. No sudo. All right. So we have our nerd font. We have Alacritty installed. What else will we need? We have the themes installed. So what we're going to do now is we're going to actually grab my config file. So like I said, there's nothing really major going on. You can read up about the file. You can change stuff in the file. But the big things that you'll probably be doing is changing the font size and changing the font type, what type of font. And I'm just setting it to JetBrains Mono Nerd font. I believe I'll pull up a thing here in a second to show you the command. So I'm going to just make sure I'm in the top level, clear it again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to the terminal. I'd want to just copy the terminal part of the GitHub Programming Rainbow. And I'm just going to clone that repository. Okay, I was just making sure I was in the top level directory, so I wasn't cloning it into some subdirectory somewhere. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into where the information is so I can see my commands, but I'm going to be copying it from where it's at to my actual local folder. That's what I'm going to be doing. So the reason why this is in an Archlinux subdirectory for the README file with all the commands is because I planned later to possibly show this for other operating systems as well. So this is for the Archlinux. So we've already installed Alacritty. We have the Alacritty themes. We made the directory and we cloned it into the directory. We've installed JetBrains Mono Nerd font. So I've already cloned. Now I have to change this. It used to be called Alacritty and Fish, but now it's called Terminal. So we've already done that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to copy the files from there to where they need to go. I'm just going to copy this, but I do know I need to change it because it's not the correct name for the repository. So it's called terminal now. So basically inside a terminal, there is a hidden folder called config and Alacritty. And inside Alacritty, there is alacritty.toml, which is that config file that I've already shown you. What we need to do is we need to actually put it in its correct place, which would be in our home folder in our .config where Alacritty, where that lives. So when we start up Alacritty, it will be reading that config file. Okay, so if I start up Alacritty now, it should have the coloring of, it should have the font of the JetBrains Mono Nerd font, and it should have the coloring of Capuchin Mocha. So I'm just going to type term here, and we have two terminals. We have console, which is what I'm using right here, the KDE one, and we'll open up Alacritty. Okay, so the coloring right away, this looks like the dark blue. That looks correct. The font size is quite bigger than this. This is because this is 14 over here, and this is 18 size. So that's correct too. Okay, so the other thing I want to do is add fish. Fish is a bit nicer to use than bash. I'm not going to change the system shell because that's always going to say bash by default, because when you're running bash scripts or anything else, you want to use bash. But just as the user interactive shell, I do like to use fish. I've been using it with Xmonad and the setup from another YouTuber, Derek Taylor, that does DistroTube right here. And I quite like his setup. At least I've modified a version of his setup. And I think I'm just straight up using his fish config. So if you go to Derek Taylor's channel here, and if you look for fish, this fish tips and tricks and all that, I'm basically just using his config file. So there's nothing special. I'm not really changing anything. I'm just kind of leaving it as is. So you can go check out his channel, and he does quite extensive videos talking about fish and different things. The Alacritty one is not really very close to his. I don't even think he updated it to the TOML version, but the fish config file that I'm using is just all the different good things that he put in there, and I really enjoy using it. So I'm just going to show you how I set that up. So again, there is an Archlinux page for it. It's here. It tells you a lot of nice information about it, but I'm just going to use his config because it works pretty good and I like it. So the config file is also in the same place that we've already cloned. It's in the config files right here, .config, and there is fish. We've already cloned this, so it's all fine. But this is the file. Like I said, I think this is pretty much his file. I don't know if there's any changes made. If I have made a change or two, it's going to be very minor, but I'm not really sure if I did. So this is kind of just setting up things, and he is doing a couple interesting things here. He's not using ls, he's using EZA instead. And EZA kind of gives a lot more information than ls gives, and it colorizes it as well, so it looks really nice. Yeah, I'm not going to go through this too much again because this is not really my file. It's just his. So I would like to point you to his videos and he can explain everything that's going on in here. There is some stuff that we won't even be using, but I'm just going to leave it in. He creates aliases for different Pac-Man things and mirror things and other stuff like that. And I don't use everything, but I do really much like using fish. It works really well. And I even leave in his color scripts here, and the Starship setup is really nice. So we're going to go ahead and install this, and we're going to use the same config. I just want to say that we're not just installing fish, we're going to also be installing this in EZA, the modern maintain replacement for ls command. And we're going to be installing Starship, which is a shell prompt. And we are also going to be installing this is the same from DistroTube, Derek Taylor's shell color scripts. This is the thing that gives you those, every time you open up the terminal, it gives you the kind of different colorized things. I quite like it, so I just leave it there. So we're going to build this as well. So sudo pacman -s, and we need fish, we need EZA, we need Starship, and the other one we're going to have to build it. So these ones we can install. And we will need to go ahead and copy the fish config file from the terminal that we cloned, the terminal repository that we cloned, into its location. Let me clear this. Make -p, and what I'm doing is making sure the fish or the fish config directory exists. So I'm going to do that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy from terminal. And this one is called config.fish. That's what the config file is named. And it's going to our home directory config. Okay, so I've copied that into place. We can show it here. And I'll cat it out for you. And it's just what we were looking at in the browser. This is what we were just looking at in the browser. And again, he's got that top video on his page, right? Fish shell tips and tricks. I figured like this is kind of his config file, and he's made his videos on it, and so I just want to let you kind of watch his video. I don't really want to take credit for his config file, but I do like using it, so I just want to show how I set it up. But he does a very good job explaining what all the great things that Fish does and how it works and what some of the stuff in his config file is doing. And he has lots of videos on it, so you can check out his other ones too. So we got EZA installed, we got Starship installed. Now this one is not packaged, so we can just go ahead and clone it and build it. And it's just some scripts is all it is. So it's going to be pretty easy. I'm just going to make sure I'm in my home directory, and I'm going to do a git clone. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to cd inside of it, and I'm doing do a make pkg -i to build it and install it. This is just some shell script, so it's not anything complicated. It's already done. Okay. I'm going to cd in the top level directory so I don't forget where I'm at. Okay, so we have everything in place, so we should be able to see the fish command being used. Okay, so right now, if we just type fish, okay, and already we're seeing this. This is the color, his shell color scripts. This is the one from that we just built. And it does it every time you open up a terminal. You're going to get a different random one. Okay, there is one that depends on the X resources that I don't have set up. Again, it's kind of depending on another one of his files. I just kind of ignore it for now. I use it in Xmonad where that file does exist, but if you want, you could include his file. I'm not going to include that one. It's not really necessary. But the thing I like about Fish is if I do an ls now, it gives me a much more interesting version. Now this isn't actually ls. When I type in ls, what it is it's EZA. And again, he explains this in his videos. What he's done here is remapped EZA to ls, but it gives it colorized and it gives it much more information. And I quite like it this way. And he's remapped some of the other ones as well. But the other thing that Fish is really good at is it's really good at predicting what you're typing. Like if you've typed a command already before, it's going to give you an autocomplete on it. So if I do a, I don't think I have any commands here. Oh, I do have some commands. Okay. Nothing really major though. So when I write SU, I get the autocomplete for something that I was looking at. I was seeing if systemd homed was active. It's not. But it kind of, I don't have much to show for it right now because this is kind of a new setup in a VM. But as you're writing commands, you don't have to write the whole command every time. If it's a command you've written many times before, you can just kind of autocomplete. So there's lots of things like that. Also, if I go inside of one of the directories, it's going to give me more information. The Starship prompt gives me more information. So if I go to, say, cd into shell scripts, now look at the prompt. It has changed now. So this is Starship. It's telling me I'm in a repo now, and it's giving me information about it. Where up here, it wasn't really saying anything. But it does say how long something took to complete, which I also really like. I like the time that something is run. It tells you, like when I'm compiling something or when I'm running a game or testing something, I get the time automatically. So there's all kinds of little things here and there that Fish is doing and Derek's config for Fish is doing. Let's try that echo. So our shell right now is set to bash, but what I really want to do is see if I can see if the nerd font works, because it's really throwing me that it wasn't working before. There it is. Okay, so that was really, you have no idea, I was really sweating bullets on that. It must be because I was in bash, not Fish. Let's exit out of Fish. Exit, if I could spell it. And let's echo that same thing. So that must be what it is. There must be another way that you do this inside bash, or I'm not sure. I don't use bash that much anymore, unfortunately. I actually use Fish way more unless I'm running a script, but even some of my scripts that I've been writing are actually been Fish scripts now instead of bash scripts. But that is kind of set up now. So basically we have our Alacritty terminal set up, and we have Fish set up, and we have these nerd fonts set up. And I can change that. Hold on, let me go back into Fish. And if you want to see these, you can see like this color thing that's just set up. I could say, is it called color scripts -R? Now just give me a different one. That's the one that doesn't work right here. It's relying on the X resources. I'm not going to really bother with it. I think there is a, what's the specific one? E. So if we do E, and I think it was, is it 45? Yeah, 45 gives us the little Space Invaders. So one, oh, that was 19. No, that was one. So there's all different ones here. I quite like them. It is kind of nice, fun to have something pop in like that. So that is that. If we also go into, let me show you a little bit about the themes. So if we go into Alacritty, so there, it's probably inside of themes, yeah, inside of the first themes. There's a little Python script here, or sorry, a little shell script here. This print. So this one is printing like the color scheme that you're using right now. That because I'm set to this, is it Capuchin? It's using that one. So if I wanted to change it, let's see, what themes do we have here? So let's pick something a little bit different. Is solar? I think solarized. Let's try solarized light. Yeah. This one right here. This is going to be the winner. I think it's going to be really bright. It's going to be really different than what we're looking at. So if I say, I'm just going to use nano again. I'm just changing one little thing. Let's see. Oh. Not where I wanted to be either. This is where I want to be. So I want to change the Alacritty.toml. So I say nano Alacritty.toml. Down here, I have this Capuchin Mocha toml set. But let's change it to that solarized. Okay. And I'm just going to do that. Say that's a Control X and then a yes on that. And now look, we got this really bright color. I actually don't like bright themes at all, but I just wanted to show it because it contrasts so much with what we already had going on here. So let's look at another theme. I think Dracula, there's a pretty nice one. There's like one dark Dracula. There's Doom 1. There's Dracula. Oh, Dracula Plus. Well, that's better than Dracula, so let's try that one real quick. The only thing better than Dracula Plus would be Dracula Plus Plus. Okay, so I'm gonna do, this is a nano. Nano's pretty simple. Just a Control X and then a Y on that. And this is the Dracula theme. So if I do that, print colors here, but we're in the, we need to be in the themes directory. That's another thing it does. So I don't know if you've noticed this when I've been coding before, but see how it's blue right now? That means it's good. That exists. But when I was here, I knew right away that I was doing something wrong because it was red. So I expected it to be in this folder and it's not. But then I realized, oh, I'm down one folder level. So I just intuitively, like understand when I see red down here, something's wrong. I'm typing the wrong thing. It's not, the file does not exist or the command does not exist. So if I were to like say I wanted to launch Firefox, Firefox, right? It's good. But if I spelled it wrong, Firefix, it's not good. So that's another thing Fish is doing. Fish is kind of color coding whether I'm typing the right thing or the wrong thing. And it's really nice because when I end up in just a normal bash in a terminal that's just running standard bash, I feel a bit restricted. I feel like I'm a little bit lost sometimes. So Fish is really nice. Now, it's not 100% compatible with bash, so you do not want to replace your system shell with bash at all. But your user shell, you can use as Fish. And then anytime you need to run a bash script because it won't work correctly in Fish, you just type in bash. So right now we are just still using our user shell is still set to bash. And I just typed in Fish to switch it over to Fish, but that's just temporary. If I want to permanently change my user shell to Fish, I can set it. And then anytime I want to use bash, I can just type in bash. And it'll switch the Fish shell over to bash, and then I can just run my bash script. Unless the script has the shebang on it where it's using bin sh or something like that, that will always be pointed to bash because we're not going to change that. So any shell script that's has the shebang in it for bash or for sh, which usually points at bash. Let's see. Bin sh. Or ld, sorry. Yeah. So bin bash is pointing at bin or bin sh is pointing at bin bash. So if you have a proper bash script, it's going to have this shebang in the beginning of it, the pound exclamation mark, and then, you know, bin sh, something like that. Us changing our user shell to fish will not affect that whatsoever. That will still run correctly. But if you have one that's not set like that, and you're launching a let's go. Let's the one that we were just launching here. This. Let's print this out. Okay, so this has it right here. Here's the shebang, right? So this is going to be using sh, which is pointing at So I don't even think I can change this. I could try to tell it to run fish, but I don't think it will. No, it won't. It basically, if it didn't have that, I could just tell it to run it as bash like this. I could do that, but it always is because it's setting it inside the script. Or I could switch over to bash like this, and then run it, you know, the same way. And now I got to type the whole thing out like I'm a caveman or something. And I don't want to do that because I'm lazy. So right now we are in fish temporarily. Okay, so let's go back over here. We can switch our shell. So we can do a ch change shell. We can do a -L on it. And it's kind of listing our shells. So what I want to do is actually set my user shell to this shell right here. And the way I do that is go on ch sh -s. And then right now it's set to bin bash, but I want to set it to bin fish. And again, this is only going to change my user shell. This is not going to affect this bin sh thing right here that is already pointed to bash. We're not doing that at all. What's going to happen is every time I open a terminal, I'm going to open up in fish. But anytime I run a shell script that's shebanged, that's still going to open up bash. And any script that's not, and it fails when I try to run it as fish, I can just switch into bash, or I can launch it with bash. It's no big deal. So if I set this now, it's not going to change until I reboot. So when I reboot, it will automatically. So if I exit out now, and then I open it back up again, if I find out what shell I'm using, it's still the same one. I'm still in bash. I'm not in fish. And if I ls, I can tell that's the bash ls instead of fish is ls, which is like this. So I'll do a reboot on it real quick. And then we'll see that it's inside of the fish. This is a bug with the pointer. I think I don't know if it's a Wayland bug or what's the story with that. I'm not actually using Wayland, which is the even wilder thing. I think it's something to do with Wayland, but I'm actually in X11, so I don't know what's going on. So I'm going to open up this terminal again, the Alacritty one. Okay, and you'll see right away it's already tried to do some graphical thing right here. And we are using that Dracula Plus theme still. So if we change that with the nano, let's see if I can spell today. I don't think I can. I know there's two. Is it C's? Okay, so this is here. Let's see if you did not want to use. So over here is console. Now console by default is using hack as I believe hack as the font for its terminal. So if we go over here, yeah, hack 14. It was originally 10. I bumped it up to 14. So we could change this to any of these. Basically, these are all the same. They're just different names for the same thing. So this JetBrains Mono Nerd font, that's fine. And if we wanted to make it look exactly like the other one, we could put it to 18 as well. And I think it'll give us a warning that we're using very large font. That's just going to ignore that for a second. And I'm going to close this and reopen it. Let's see if we can. Looks like it is a similar size font, is it? There might be some spacing differences. Let me just double check again. We did change it. Yeah, that's it. Should just be this one. And the color is not the same. I haven't really looked in how to change the color in console. Console works really good. I really like console when I'm just using KDE. It's no big deal, but I generally don't use KDE that much anymore. So I have been using this one, for the last several years, and this is what I prefer. But you can use whatever terminal you like. You will need Nerd fonts installed, so we got the Nerd fonts working on both of them, and it should do it here too. Yeah, there we go. We have the little gopher down there if you can see it. So that's the little gopher right there. So that is good. I'm just going to close it. I don't want to shrink it all the way back down again. So you do need that in place if you're going to use like NeoVim, anything like that that's using Nerd fonts. So I think that's everything. Like I was really sweating earlier about this it not showing up. I didn't realize it was Bash. I haven't been using Bash in a long time, basically. So again, you can get the 2 config files here and also the instructions to everything I did. It's not too much instructions. I do need to change the Alacritty fish part to terminal, but other than that, it's quite simple thing. His script, and this is changing the so for right now, if we list what our shell is, so now it's fish. But if I wanted to get into Bash, I could just type in Bash. And now if I ls, I got the Bash ls. And if I echo, hold on. This one right here. If I do that in Bash, it doesn't work. But it didn't work before, so that's just how Bash is working. Maybe there's another way to do it. I don't really know. I don't use Bash that much. So that is the terminal. And like I said, there's lots of great things that Fish does. But again, there's already somebody that has videos on that, and it's over there at DistroTube. So, and he's got videos on Alacritty and everything else too, but I don't think I'm doing anything specific with Alacritty that he's doing, or whatever. I don't even think he's using the same setup. Actually, I think he's using an old setup. But the fish one is basically what he's using. So if you just type in fish in his thing, you will find right here. It's a very good video, lots of tips and tricks. But I generally just like using it. I don't think about it. It works really great. It gives you the little helpful hints when you're typing something correct or not correct, or when you've already typed something a whole bunch of times, it's going to autocomplete for you. It's got the built-in nerd font. That's all working. It's got Alacritty itself has the color schemes, which are really nice. So that's all kind of setting up to go into using the NeoVim. Okay. And I think that is everything. And Starship, that kind of gives you an interesting prompt. And the EZA is the replacement for LS that we're using there. There's some other stuff going on there too. I think that is everything. Again, so I hope that was educational and entertainable, and have a good day.